Hello, everyone. I see we have people slowly joining us. It is 12 o'clock, so we're going to get started. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for everyone for joining us today. We are really excited to have you here and to be celebrating National Caregiver Day today with you. I am Katie McDonald. I will be the moderator for today. And I just wanted to, as people come in, just to open up the chat to let us know where you are joining in from. And then we will get started and kick off the event. So feel free to let us know where in Ontario or Canada, or sometimes we get people joining us even internationally. So I see many people from the GTA area and across the province, all the way from Kapuskasing. That's amazing. And East and Sturgeon Falls in Eastern Ontario over in Ottawa. Wonderful. Thunder Bay, Vietnam. Amazing. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And continue to let us know where you're joining in from today. And I'm going to get us started. So as I mentioned, on behalf of Ontario Caregiver Organization, I'd really like to welcome you and to thank you for joining us. So I said, my name's Katie McDonald, and I have the pleasure of being your moderator today. I'm a caregiver myself, and I have had the honor of working with caregivers and organizations that support caregivers through my role here at Ontario Caregiver Organization. So I'm really thrilled to be here with you. Just some quick housekeeping items. Your microphones have been muted and your videos have been turned off just to provide privacy, but we do encourage you to use the chat throughout the presentation to engage, to let us know your thoughts. If there's any burning questions that pop up, we may have time for people to address those. Otherwise, we are going to keep our agenda rolling. And just to let you know, the video, the session is being recorded today. And so if you aren't able to stay for the whole thing, it will be recorded and you will get a copy of it afterwards. So before we get started, I just want to acknowledge that while we're all meeting on a virtual platform today, we need to take a moment to pause and acknowledge the importance of the land that we all call home. So I'm joining you today personally from Brantford, which is part of the Grand River Valley. And this land is the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Neutral Nations. And these nations shared these lands under the Dish with the One Spoon Wampum Agreement, which was an agreement to share, work, and protect the lands together in harmony. And this territory is part of the Haldimand Treaty of 1874. So I invite you just to take a quick moment to reflect with gratitude on the land in which you're located. And if you'd like to learn more about the lands you're joining from, you can learn more at nativeland.ca. Wonderful. So let's jump in. So we have a lot of people to welcome and to thank for joining us today. So first of all, I want to welcome everyone. Welcome to everyone, all caregivers, all care providers, healthcare leaders. We have current and past OCO board members joining us, volunteers and funders. We are so glad that you're all here with us today. Thank you for joining. And then second, thank you to all the caregivers in the audience. So in honor of National Caregiver Day today, we really want to recognize and celebrate caregivers for all that you do, for all that we do. Everyone's caregiving journey is unique, the challenges and the rewards and the ups and the downs. And so while we're all living our own unique story, coming together today to celebrate National Caregiver Day is just a reminder that we're not alone and that there's a common thread that weaves us all together, and that is that we care. And this applies to caregivers and to those who support caregivers in various ways. And so this is the collective we, which is why we've themed this year's celebration exactly that, which is we care. And so today, throughout our time together, you'll hear from individuals who are both caregivers and care champions. These are people who have dedicated both their personal and their professional lives to caregiving and to having an impact on the landscape of caregiving across the province. And so, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our first guest. Our first guest joining us today is Amy Kupal. Amy is the CEO of Ontario Caregiver Organization, which you may hear us refer to as OCO. um, the lingo, just in case you hear it later. Under Amy's collaborative leadership, she really charts the path for our organization to stay intensely committed to our mission, which is to improve the lives of Ontario's 4 million caregivers and counting, which I know she will talk about the and counting part today. Amy brings more than 20 years of experience to her role and has a deep understanding of the benefits and challenges associated with caregiving. And as a caregiver for most of her life, Amy has helped support her brother who had cerebral palsy. She was also a caregiver to her mother throughout her cancer journey and now supports her father through older adulthood. So I'm going to pass it over to Amy to kick us off.
Thanks so much, Katie. And thanks everyone for joining us here today. I'm so excited that we have caregivers from across the province and beyond. And we also have staff members, board members, volunteers, funders, system partners, and more who are here. So whether you come from health or social care, whether you come from your own living room, wherever you are today, I want to say welcome and thank you so much for joining us. In particular, I want to recognize all of the caregivers who are here with us today. Your contributions in your families, in your communities, in our society often go unnoticed. And this is a great opportunity for us today to recognize you and everything that you do. So thank you so much today and every day for taking on this really important role of caregiver in your life. I'm also particularly excited to have Janet Bede joining us today to announce the inaugural recipient of the Janet Bede Impact Award. Janet is someone who I greatly admire, and I've had the immense privilege of working with Janet as OCO's inaugural board chair. Janet is going to talk about her own experience in getting OCO off the ground, so I won't take away from any of that. But I do want to say that it was an incredible experience for me coming in and getting this organization started, to work with Janet, to collaborate with her, to learn from her, and to problem solve with her, which we had to do many times. And I'm so excited that as Janet completed her term on the OCO Board of Directors, that we came up with a way to recognize her amazing contribution by creating this award. So this is a recognition of Janet as well as our award recipient, who will be announced shortly. But it's a great way to celebrate Janet's amazing contributions to the caregivers of Ontario. And I'm really looking forward, Janet, to hearing what you have to say. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Amy. And it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to be here with you today. It was 9 years ago, 2016, when I received the call asking if I'd assess the need for there to be a caregiver organization in the province of Ontario. And my first thought was, I actually think the field is pretty full. I think there's a fair bit of caregiver support out there. But to be sure, we decided that we would engage with province-wide town halls, interviews, and consultations. We decided we needed to hear from caregivers. Is there sufficient support for you, or is there a role for an Ontario organization? Well, my eyes and my ears were opened. It became very clear that unless you had the right illness and you were the right age and you lived in the right part of Ontario, you did not have the support you required as the everyday caregiver. In essence, as the everyday caregiver in Ontario, you did not have a voice. So, with that in mind, and with a very eager administration, we were supported in creating the Ontario Caregiver Organization. And our goal was to make certain that the everyday caregiver in Ontario no longer had a silent voice. Our goal is to speak for the caregiver, and that has been our mission and our foundation. You know, the needs were extensive. Once you get into it, you see how extensive the needs are for caregivers. And we had to find a way that we could focus our opportunities and what we could do in our small fledgling state to maximize our impact to be able to grow. We didn't want to spend our time knocking down doors where we weren't wanted. We wanted to spend our time going through doors that were open, using partnerships, and using the experiences of others, such as the Nova Scotia Caregiver Organization and the wonderful Change Foundation, who had been studying caregiving for some time. So, with those ideas in mind, voice at the caregiver, partner with others, build and expand, and let's not recreate things, we went out and said, we think we need to come at this in three different ways. We need to think about the individual. That's you. And number one is, how do you navigate the caregiving system or the systems that are engaged with caregiving, be they education, healthcare, social programming? How do you as an individual navigate that? What are your individual needs? But we also saw that we couldn't just look after the individual if we didn't pay attention to the organizations that impacted caregiving, such as schools, universities, and colleges that prepare and teach caregivers, but prepare future people who will be interacting with caregivers, and hospitals who view the caregiver valuably at certain times, but not at other times. We had to make certain that the caregiver had a role there. And finally, if we didn't also look at the system, look and see what the system of Ontario that provides for caregiving, what were their needs? And, we heard from many people, they would say, well, caregivers just need. And I think if we had a penny for every time someone told me what caregivers just need, but it wasn't from your voices, it wasn't you speaking, they would say caregivers just need tax incentives, caregivers just need respite. But one very, very gifted woman told me that she had stopped working. She had stopped working to care for her mother and then her father. And when they passed away, she would be homeless and jobless. That's a system issue. We have to pay attention to the system issues. So, individual, organization, and system. So, armed with this, we went out to do our very best going through open doors. And I'm thrilled with what we've been able to accomplish, but there's so much more that needs to be done. We'll never stop. We'll always keep going. But everything we do has to be done with the voice of the caregiver, who is mandatory in our society today and in our society tomorrow. I've had many wonderful opportunities in my career and in my personal life. But I have to say, being part of creating the Ontario Caregiver Organization is the one that I will treasure deepest in my heart. I've been so fortunate to be part of this, and I am so touched that my name is attached to the Janet Bede Impact Award. I couldn't be more humbled and more complimented. So thank you for listening to our story. Always be passionate. Let's hear your voices. I'll hand back to Amy now.
Janet, thanks so much. It's really great, I think, for people to hear about your experience and that personal perspective. And I really appreciate, you have decades of leadership experience in healthcare. And if you can bring that perspective as well as your own caregiving experience to have written that expanding caregiver support in Ontario report and then spearheaded that move to create OCO, what a great testament to your leadership and your understanding and the listening that you did with caregivers, which I think you just conveyed to us so well. So really, really appreciate that. I'm going to tell people a little bit about this first round of seeking nominations for the Janet Bede Impact Award. We were so pleased to receive dozens of nominations from people, and we were humbled by the efforts of so many different nominators who really took the time to consider who they wanted to nominate and why. And I want to say a particular thank you to anyone who's on here who was a part of that nomination process for taking the time and the effort to recognize caregivers in your lives. I want to highlight for you what we looked at with the selection committee as we considered each of these nominations. These were, of course, tied to the activities and the principles that guided Janet's original work, but also have been hallmarks of your work, Janet, with OCO throughout your time in leadership as a board member and board chair. So we looked at awareness and how these nominees were raising awareness about caregiving issues. We looked at solutions and how caregivers were a part of generating solutions that would make a difference with caregivers and for caregivers. We wanted to consider people who had that bias to action. So people who were really looking to actually make a difference that would be having a meaningful outcome in people's lives. We wanted to see that evidence of collaboration. We all know we can't do this alone, and so that was really key. We wanted a champion who is a champion of caregiving issues, as Janet continues to be. And then finally, of course, was impact, and someone who's really making an impact across different aspects of health and social care. And so now it is my great pleasure to announce the first recipient of the Janet Bede Impact Award, and that is Ron Boleno. So Ron, with his smiley face on Zoom, is going to come on so that you can see him. And what a great opportunity, Ron, for us to recognize you. So Ron is an experienced family caregiver. He cared for his late father with Alzheimer's for over 10 years. He's an active advocate in the dementia, caregiving, aging, and research communities. And many of you who are on the call today may have encountered Ron in some of your work as caregivers, advocates, healthcare providers, or system partners. Ron is affiliated with AgeWell, which is Canada's Technology and Aging Network. He serves as the co-chair of the Older Adult Caregiver Advisory Committee, and he's a leading advisor to government, healthcare organizations, researchers, innovators. And Ron spends a lot of his time educating and consulting on technologies and other considerations aimed at improving caregiving for all. I also want to note that Ron received 8 different nominations from 8 different pathways in his life where he plays an active role as a caregiver advocate. And even though that actually didn't change the weighting, I think that's a real testament to how many people have been impacted by the work that you do, Ron. So it's such a pleasure to welcome you and to celebrate you as the inaugural recipient of the Janet Bede Impact Award. Congratulations, Ron.
Hey, thanks, Amy, and thanks, everyone. Just a little comment. First, happy National Caregiver Day to everyone here, whether you're a caregiver or not. Just wanted to acknowledge all of us here on this day, the first Tuesday of every April. So thank you. Honored. Want to say quickly thanks to the nominators. I don't know all of you who nominated me. I don't have that list yet, but thank you, as well as to the Ontario Caregiver Organization for the Janet Bede Impact Award. So I do have it here. Okay, it's a beautiful award. I know that it's in the picture there, but I will always be talking about Janet, okay, when I show this off. So Janet, you're part of your legacy is part of my life, and a little certificate here as well. So thank you to that. And also thank you to the staff. I just want to acknowledge the staff at the OCO. I know a lot of you personally, even before you were with the OCO, amazing people. And to the board members who I don't know all of you, but thank you for getting the OCO to this stage. There's still a lot of work in front of us, but thank you. And last group are the volunteers, all the volunteers that support the Ontario Caregiver Organizations. And many of you are caregivers yourself. So thank you. Thank you for this. Exciting.
Great, Ron. So folks can see just some of the quotes from individuals who have had the opportunity to learn from your experience and your insights. We have real recognition around your mentorship from Tyler and Ishan, and we see how great you are at making connections. And I know, Ron, that this is something that I've had the opportunity to see in action many times as our work has overlapped. Now, we do have a short video to share. Ron, of course, has been working with us quietly to prepare for this. So perhaps, team, we can go to the video next and hear a little bit more.
I am so excited to be recognizing the first recipient of the Janet Bede Impact Award. Janet Bede was OCO's inaugural board chair and continues to be a passionate advocate for caregivers across Ontario. This award represents Janet's values around raising awareness for caregivers, generating solutions, and working towards positive impact that improves the lives of Ontario caregivers. I'm so excited that we can recognize Janet's contributions to OCO in this way and our first award recipient.
Hi, my name is Saskia Sivananthan. I am CEO of the Brainwell Institute, one of Canada's only dementia-focused policy and advocacy think tanks. And it is my absolute pleasure and privilege to nominate Ron Bellino for the Ontario Caregiver Impact Award.
For this award, we were looking for someone who models the values that Janet also demonstrates. Someone who raises awareness about the needs of caregivers, works to generate solutions, calls for action and is working towards creating positive impact, and works in collaboration with others to champion the needs and solutions for caregivers. We were so delighted by all of the nominations that we received, and I want to thank everyone who took the time to nominate someone and to recognize all of our nominees who are doing amazing things with and for caregivers across the province. Ron, you are the first recipient of the Janet Bede Impact Award. How does that feel?
I am so honored and grateful to receive this award. It means so much to me and my family. I was a caregiver to my father that had dementia, specifically Alzheimer's, and we went through so many challenges, specifically financial, emotional, and physical. And that is something that I know many caregivers will be facing.
Ron, you've not only recognized the need for solutions, but you've worked on generating them as well. Tell us about some of the technology solutions that you've been involved with.
For my family, we had to implement a lot of remote care tools, technologies that will help us care for Dad from a distance. That was something that supported not just myself, but also my mother, who needed some respite along the way.
You've been an advocate for systemic change. Tell us a bit about that.
It's about awareness, education, and impact for me. Awareness to highlight the challenges that caregivers go through, education to share what the challenges are in caregiver lives, and impact to make that change to support caregivers in their lives.
Tell us about the system work you've been involved with to raise awareness about the needs of caregivers.
Every time I get to a table, I just want to make sure that the stories of all caregivers are heard. By having caregivers at the table, that ensures that the outcomes work for them.
Why is mentoring the next generation of leaders so important to you?
Mentoring for me means that the next generation of leaders truly understands how to impact the lives of caregivers.
You've been described as someone who brings together individuals from different sectors: healthcare, technology, advocacy, and policy. Tell us about your involvement in that and how you've worked in collaboration to make an impact.
Collaborations for me is about connecting various stakeholders to create a larger impact to support lives of caregivers. For example, bringing in researchers and innovators together to create solutions to support the challenges that caregivers face.
Based on your experience, what do you think caregivers need most?
Caregivers need a circle of care. That's a care team to support them as they go through their journey. It's not something you do by yourself.
Ron, what keeps you motivated to drive change?
My motivation are the stories that I hear from many of the caregivers of their challenges and successes.
I am humbled every day by caregivers like Ron, who share their lived experience, their insights, and their willingness to collaborate to make meaningful and lasting change. Thank you to all of you who are willing to share your stories and work together to improve the lives of Ontario's caregivers.
Congratulations again, Ron. What a great celebration of your contributions and your accomplishments. And I hope you're feeling well recognized today.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
That's great. I'm really excited about this part of our agenda because now we get to have some open discussion with Ron and Janet and to hear a little bit more about their perspectives and experiences. So Janet, I wonder if we can turn it over to you.
Wonderful, and thank you. Lovely words, Ron. Appreciate them very much. And the spirit of caregiving is truly evident in everything that you say and do, and just in your smile. So I do want to talk a little bit about the caregiving experience and this word we hear. I heard it in consultation. I heard it when I've been caregiving in the past and currently. And they talk about caregiving and burden. And many are offended by the word burden, and others say, not sure I'd call it a burden, but maybe it is. And then we have our Preparing to Care report that was just published, where over 2 million future caregivers are saying they don't know that they can, if they will be ready to take on or able to take on the role of caregiving, either because of the financial or the emotional impact. What do you think we need to do to balance this burden and opportunity balance?
Janet, that's a question that I think is quite powerful to bring up that many don't discuss, I guess, when it's one-on-one. So I'm glad we're bringing it up in this forum here. I'm going to start first and foremost with words, the words we choose that actually matter. You kind of hinted to that. Some people interpret the word burden as this, and some people will not be triggered by it. Some people are triggered by the word caregiver. I don't know, even know if you know that. I don't relate to caregiver. Some will argue care partner or carer. Okay, so I always start all my talks saying these are all labels. Okay. I remind people sticks and stones may break my bones, but names and labels shouldn't hurt me. We teach that to kids. But I also say that it's to each their own. Whatever word works for you or triggers you, that's your own. But we can get better at that. Okay, so for example, balancing burden with the opportunity. Okay, I've always tried to go the positive side. Okay, with whatever challenges that I've come through, and that's easier said than done. I think this is my opportunity to remind people that this is where we have to do a lot of the work, is that conversation we have between the ears and the eyes. Okay, it's that what we say to ourselves when we're by ourselves. Okay, when we leave this and the caregivers by themselves and they're having that conversation, we can get better at that. Okay, for me, it is about creating confidence in the caregiver, is what I'm going to say, that we need to kind of push forward. We're not going to always be there for each other. Okay, we're not always going to have the resources. So the burden piece, it's going to happen to everybody. It's happened to all of us as caregivers, but we can get better at the conversation. So one of the things I just want to sneak in here is the burden of guilt. Okay, I don't know one caregiver that has not brought the word guilt up. So I want to sneak in my strategy that has apparently worked for many. Is I personally believe guilt has nothing to do or should belong in caregiving. If you care, okay, then you care, and it's not about judging yourself whether you're a good or bad person. Okay? So the quickest way I'm just going to say it here is If you can remove these 4 words just to try it out for the next month, you can always go back to your conversation in your head if you want to change it. But I said remove good or bad, right or wrong from your language, and replace it, am I doing what's best at this moment of time? Okay, if you can take those good and bad or right or wrongs, those out, chances are that burden of guilt might be removed. Okay, so, and please do your best to not judge yourself in this way. You care, all of us care. And I did that. I dealt with guilt a lot, but I moved on from that. So I just want to throw that out, that there's the opportunities to kind of play with that.
That's a wonderful answer, Ron. I really appreciate it. When we talked about what are the needs of the individual, I think part of what we can do as an organization is talk about it's okay to take a break. It's okay to take a pause. It's okay to set limits. And I know in my caregiving journey with my mother, who was palliative care and it was full on, I set limits. And at the time, I had moments of guilt, but it really maximized my experience with her. And when I think back on it, I do see my time with her at the end as a real opportunity and a real gift. But I think it was because I was helped to set the limits.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Janet, I liked how you brought that time piece here. That's the one thing people forget. There's a lot of wisdom with other caregivers. So the peer support in our stories, Amy has it, you have it, a lot of people at the OCO have it. We've seen a lot of what can happen to caregivers. So that all those stories where we can find the gifts, it's there. It's just we need to kind of communicate that out to others and try and catch that a little sooner than later in the journey.
Yeah.
A lot of them. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. So one of the other things that came up when we first started doing the research on caregiving, I cannot tell you how many caregivers said to me, if I get one more questionnaire about caregiving and then I hear nothing. So you ask me and then you do nothing with it. And those were PhD students and for-profit companies, not-for-profit companies, disease-oriented companies. So there was really a distress on the part of the caregiver, stop asking me and doing nothing. So, what would be the research question that you think we should turn our attention to?
Sure. So before I give my question, this is a call out to those that are on here and who are going to be watching the recording, who are not the caregivers. They're wearing the other hat of the researcher, the innovator, policymakers that send us hundreds and thousands of surveys and interviews. Please respect the time and the experience and the knowledge of the caregivers. I know that the intent isn't there for many of them to not follow up. Okay, but it has to be part of your practice. It has to be part of your routine now that you should be following up if the caregiver would like that back. And many of them would like that. If you're not sure, just still follow up and just say, hey, we have these results. It could be a year later. Okay, we just want to make sure as caregivers know that our time was of value and that we want to see some of this impact. Okay, so I am also challenging them to kind of say, hey, is your work actually impactful? Okay, we will call you out on that to say, why are you doing this? Because I don't know how that affects my life. So that's something that I would love that those that are seeking our voices to kind of improve on how you can communicate back to us, not just at the end, but even throughout. Okay, so I do a lot of work on patient engagement. So that kind of falls into that space to make sure that the voice is supported. So my question is a little bit of a shift that this is coming back to what I commented earlier is I would love research. Okay, so my question would be, how best can we increase caregiver confidence? I'm going to put that theme out there today. Okay, the confidence piece. And that is not just for the individual caregiver, but how can we increase caregiver confidence with the support of the collective we? Okay, so that was mentioned earlier. So I'm going to stick with the theme with we care. Okay, it's not just about giving them tools, which I might talk about later, like here's the technology and all that stuff, but how do we support them collectively so that all the failures that we go through, okay? Caregivers, our life is simply about dealing with life's failures. Okay, if we weren't failing in life, then it would be so easy. But we're failing in so many places, and the caregiver needs that confidence to say, how do I bounce back from this? How do I take on this for the next few days or weeks or months, even years? So that's my question, is the confidence piece. I actually, in my presentations, have another word. We're rarely this there, Janet, in Canada, but how do we become more cocky caregivers? Okay, so there's confidence in the, so I kind of say, I don't mind if anyone's cocky, the caregiver, because you're going to have your bad days and it's going to drop you down. Okay, and I want you to be dropped down to a space of confidence. So, but yeah, the confidence with the collective we is what I would be asking out into the community.
What I love about that answer is that it is about the caregiver. And for me, if the research question isn't going to make the life of the caregiver better, then don't ask the caregiver to give you time. And so
Exactly.
building on their confidence, great suggestion. I'd love to be part of answering that question.
Sure.
So you talked a bit about technology, and
Mhm.
right now we're thinking technology is going to solve everything, like AI is going to do this, and computers and robots. But let's bring it down to, what do you believe we will be doing for caregivers? How can we help caregivers and still keep that humane and kindness component that's essential for both?
So two things recently happened in the past, I think 2, 3 weeks for me. One is that with the Ontario Caregiver Organization, there was this wonderful webinar, on technology and caregiving, hosted by me. Okay, so somewhere I know it's going to be out there, the recording, and that's one place to first start. And then last week I was invited to the Canadian Medical Association conference. Uh, and even though it's all the doctors and all that stuff, the theme was AI, even though that wasn't the title, but everyone was talking about AI.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, Amy and I have had great conversations on AI. Just because I support technology doesn't mean I support having technology everywhere. Okay. I would love to replace that term technology simply with the word tools. It's just a tool. Okay. Let's not get caught up on the technology. Let's get caught up on the life of the caregiver and the person they're caring for. And what tools do we need to help them keep moving forward? Okay.
Hmm.
Either with a smaller failure in life, less bumps, or even removing some of these challenges. Okay, so those failures and challenges. So for me, technology is simply a tool. I always joke with this when I said, if everyone has used a toilet today, that is at one point a technology. It's a tool for us just to go to the bathroom. Okay,
Hmm.
so all these tools coming up, they will. It's a little scary but exciting. Okay, let's pick AI. Janet, you spoke up about artificial intelligence. Uh, that could the ugly side is there are bad people out there, I will say. Okay, or even if you're using technology, uh, it needs to be you need to partner with caregivers to discuss how best to use that. They have to be at the table all the time,
Hmm.
and they have to be actually even on your team to do the checks and balances to say, hey, no, this is not appropriate, or this is biased to one group. So that's the AI piece, which is what I'm concerned about. But it's going to be out there, so we need to have a team of people to kind of challenge this and make sure that we're doing it properly. But it is a tool, high tech and low tech. It's not just high tech stuff. So, but combine it with others. That's my last comment on this. Don't just look at the technology with this. It's this plus your community, plus your neighbors, plus the OCO if need be, and you create that care team with your tools. That's pretty much what I want to say on that part. Yeah.
What I love about that, Ron, is we're talking about what does the caregiver need, and then how can technology, both high tech, low tech, help, as opposed to what technology exists and how can we force it on the
Exactly.
caregiver.
Yeah.
Again, coming from the caregiver voice, just so important to what we do as an organization, as in individuals and a community. Well, thank you for the Q&A with me. I'm going to hand over to Amy. She may have a couple of questions for you. Over to you, Amy.
Great. Thanks so much, Janet. I always appreciate your thoughtful questions, and I'm quite sure that they've given caregivers the opportunity to reflect on what you've asked and how it relates to their experience as well. So thanks so much for that. Ron, I'm going to give you the last word in our conversation today, and I wonder if there's anything that you would like to say to caregivers today.
Yeah. This could be an hour response, but I'm going to hold up on that. First, you're all supported, whether you know it or not. There is a community out there waiting to support you. If you're willing to be a little vulnerable, I'm going to say that there's a little piece of vulnerability when it comes to caregiving. I talk about in my past, and many do it, I was trying to be Superman by myself, right? And then I realized, no, we do need a team. Okay. And I always say, even superheroes like Superman create the Justice League with other superheroes. Okay. So I don't know, Amy or Janet, what your superpowers would be. I think you guys should do that within the OCO, saying, this is my superpower, you know, all your staff, and say, what will I have? Sorry, I'm just coming up with that right now. But it is one where we do need the team to move forward in life. Okay. So that is one that I'm throwing out. But I also want to tell caregivers to never forget about your own personal goals and dreams in life. Okay. Many times it's all about the person we're caring for, but we forget about ourselves. It's not, I'm going to be honest, you know, a lot of them may not happen that you have, but you have to put that on your fridge somewhere. These are my goals and my dreams. And how can you take a few steps every week, every month, every year forward? So I always remind people to say to yourself, or put it on paper, 3 things to look forward to is what I'm calling you guys to do. I'm suggesting short term, medium term, and long term. Okay. Just put it on paper, put it in your calendar that, hey, I can have coffee this week with someone. Maybe I'm going to go out to just get some respite by myself or walk. And then maybe a year from now, I might be able to visit a place that you've been wanting to go to, or learn a lesson. Just put it on your calendar. Chances are some of them and many of them will not come to fruition, but you have a higher chance to getting there. So there's a benefit of looking forward by putting it on paper. So that's just one little tip I'm going to give to everybody. It's my last word. And thank you again. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Ron, for your thoughts. And I'm going to do a joint thank you to both Ron and Janet, because I feel like I can say the same thing to both of you. You know, this award is a representation of who you are as a person, Janet, and the leadership that you've brought. And Ron, as the winner, demonstrates those qualities. So I want to say thank you to both of you for your leadership, for your vulnerability, for your willingness to listen to others and to make sure that the stories that you've heard also are put to good use in creating change. And also thank you for inspiring others, because I think everyone who's here in our session today or who may listen to the recording may be very inspired by what you've had to say. Whether you choose to play that role of caregiver leader or caregiver advocate, it may just inspire people to keep going day to day. And as caregivers, sometimes that's really what we need. So thank you to both of you for doing that every day and for giving us the opportunity to recognize you today. And thank you to all of our caregivers on National Caregiver Day, and of course, every other day of the year as well. So I will turn it back to Katie for one more activity today. Thanks again.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Ron and Janet. You guys were wonderful guests, and I can tell from the chat that many people took some great advice and some things to keep in mind and to walk away with from today. So thank you. So you guys are welcome to turn your mics and cameras off, and I'm going to launch into our next kind of step of the day today, which is our word cloud. So National Caregiver Day is about celebrating caregivers. And so when you registered today, you had an opportunity to share with us a word that you would use to describe your personal strength, or one of your personal strengths that you are most proud of. And if you didn't get a chance to do this when you registered and you'd like to add a word or share a word now, please feel free to add it into the chat box there. And so while people are doing that, I'm just going to encourage you to kind of scan the word cloud for a word, for either for the word that you contributed or a word that jumps out at you. Some starting to come in, humor, and that's in the word cloud as well. Unsung heroes. patience, adaptable. Yeah, so keep those words coming in. And so now, just before I kind of go into some of these words, I'm going to challenge you today. And I thought to myself this morning, okay, maybe challenge isn't the right word, because I don't want to make you feel like I'm making you do any work. But actually, what Ron said about caregivers often being so humble, that maybe it's not so much as maybe it's a challenge for this group, because what I'm going to challenge you to do is to pick out 2 more words from the word cloud or from the chat, that 2 strengths that really resonate with you and that you can reflect on and feel proud of yourself today. And so maybe you want to write them down somewhere, a gentle reminder, as Ron was saying, when it's kind of in our face and we can kind of have a moment during our days. Maybe it's a Post-it note on the side of your desk or on the fridge. But just a gentle reminder to celebrate these strengths, not just today, as Amy said, not just today, but the other days too, and especially on the hard days. So that's my challenge to you. Pick your word or a couple words that you're going to put into your toolkit, your caregiver strengths toolkit, your toolbox that is just uniquely yours, and keep that with you. So it's really interesting, these word clouds. If you've never done one before, I'll let you know a little bit about how they work. So when people respond, the more the word is used, the bigger the word becomes in the word cloud. So that's why you see the word resilient as the biggest word. That's the largest number of people responded by saying resilient as a strength that they identified and felt very proud of. So other ones that we see here, patience and empathy, and compassion, are kind of another group of strengths. And then we also see words around tenacity and perseverance, determination and dedication and commitment. And so maybe these are words that resonate with you, and you want to add them to your list. And there's also a lot of other words, action words, kind of words around resourcefulness, innovative, and knowledgeable. And so there's many others, again, so just take a moment to have a look through them. And again, maybe write them down, or feel free to keep adding them to the chat. But we really just wanted to take a moment to, there's been many thank yous and expressions of gratitude today from those of us on the team, those of us who have been part of OCO, but also to reflect inward and to thank yourself and to give yourself that humble brag that you so much deserve. So I really appreciate everyone that contributed to this. I'm just going to have a quick look at the chat because I see some interesting ones coming in. So the sweet moments. Yeah, the sweet moments that was in there. There's some that are hiding a little bit that I really like. Finding joy, love, advocate, flexible, have a voice, tenacious. Yeah, so wonderful. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you so much for everyone contributing. We'll leave it open, so feel free to add and do your reflection. I just also wanted to take this moment while we have a captive audience. I just wanted to take the moment just to let you all know, if this is your first time hearing about OCO or if this is your first time connecting with us, I just want to be able to share really quickly some of the ways that our organization can help support you as a caregiver, or if you're here joining as a care provider or another organizational support for caregivers, maybe there's some new ideas in here for you as well. But I won't take up too much time, but just really wanted to give you some ideas of what's cooking at OCO and how we can support. So how can we help? So first of all, we provide direct to caregiver supports. And so these are free programs, services, and resources that have been co-designed with caregivers. I'm going to give you a highlight of them in the next slide, but these are all free across the province. So we really encourage you, if you're a caregiver and you are adding to that support team that Ron was talking about, and you want to include OCO as a team member on your support team, please consider joining any of our programs and services, and hopefully you'll get inspired as I tell you more about them. We also help healthcare providers. We work with healthcare providers by providing guidance and resources that can help to identify, include, and support caregivers as essential partners in care. And we heard a lot about that today. We also work with employers and workplaces to help develop caregiver-friendly workplace cultures, practices, and policies that support working caregivers. And then we do a number of collaborations and partnerships with organizations across the province to help really amplify and leverage the expertise of what others are doing. And this is a national holiday across the country, so we also, work with our counterparts in other provinces to really not work in silos, but to work off best practices and to make our resources go even further. So just a quick kind of let you know that if any of what I just said, if you're a provider and anything that I just said is of interest to you and you want to get connected to us, whether it's through workplace or you're a healthcare provider or another organization, please reach out to us. We'll have contact information at the end because we would love to work with you. And then for the caregivers in the audience and how we can help support you, here's a quick highlight of our free programs and services. So I'm going to go through them really quickly for you. You can also scan the QR code on the slide here, and that'll take you to a one-page document that kind of outlines all of them in more detail. So the first one is our 24/7 helpline. This is available, 24/7 on the phone, also by text chat or chat on your computer if it's more comfortable for you. This is a great place to go to access navigation help. So if you're looking for more programs or more services for the person who you care for, the people you care for, as well as supports and resources for yourself. So our caregiver support team who answer this phone, they're all trained on our own programs, these ones that you see on the screen here, and they can help you get connected as well. So if any of them are interest to you, please feel free to jump on our website and register or call our helpline for more information. We also offer a variety of online support groups. So our support groups run sometimes during the days, evenings. I think we even have one on the weekend. So anything that works for your schedule. It's a great way of getting together with a smaller group of caregivers who can help share in your journey, provide some social connection and outlet. Some of that humor that popped up in the word cloud is often what is shared with our support groups. We also have a one-to-one peer mentoring program where you're matched up with another lived experienced caregiver who might have similar experiences to you, and you can chat with them once a month for 6 months to, again, share in your caregiving journey, reduce that sense of isolation, gather some insights, maybe learn about some new resources, maybe have conversations like Ron was just talking about sharing your own goals, right? Taking the time to focus those conversations maybe more on your caregiving journey and your experience. We also have caregiver coaching. This is another one-to-one program that we offer. Our caregiver coaches are also lived experience caregivers, but they also have professional backgrounds that they bring to their role. And this program is 6 sessions, and it helps you really work through some of the complex challenges that are really unique to your caregiving situation and how you can kind of unpack some of those challenges and create a bit of an action plan or some strategies to help you along the way. So really action oriented. We also have our SCALE program. It stands for Supporting Caregiver Awareness, Learning, and Empowerment. This is our approach to supporting caregiver mental health. This is a program that we run twice a year for 8 weeks each time, usually the fall and the winter. And this program helps people understand and learn about some of the common caregiver emotions or experiences. And so you learn about them, and then you have the opportunity to connect with a therapist, a clinical counselor for one-to-one counseling or group counseling. So this program is delivered by a clinical support that we work with, and we've run this program a number of times with a lot of great feedback, and the numbers of people who come and attend and then access the counseling services is just phenomenal. So we feel very grateful to be able to offer that at no cost. And then we also have a variety of caregiver education. So this could be our webinars that we offer monthly. I think we have a really, really great spring lineup of webinars that you can check out on our website. The next one coming up April 10th, which is dealing with caregiver anger and frustration. And then we also have podcasts and online learning and different toolkits. So lots to help caregivers feel empowered and informed. So that's quick highlight of our programs and services for caregivers. Again, if you want to connect with us about this, please feel free to drop us an email or call the caregiver helpline. Again, if you're a provider and you want to connect with us at all, please send us an email. So just before we wrap up, I just want to say thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your commitment to caregiving in whatever capacity you're joining us. I want to thank the guests who are here and joining us today. Congratulate Ron on being the inaugural recipient of this of the Janet Beat Award. And also just to wish you all a wonderful day. I hope that your National Caregiver Day has some of those sweet moments in it. And everyone take care. So quick final information here. I was just mentioning about ways that you can keep in touch. We've included them here. Great opportunity is to go to our website. We have lots of information there. We also have our subscribe to our newsletter, which is a great way of just kind of staying informed about what we're offering. We have a newsletter for providers as well as caregivers. So it's a really nice way of staying in touch. So thank you again. Thank you to everyone for joining us. I will open it back up. If there's anything, Amy, that you want to finish with, any last words to our caregiving audience?
So much, Katie. I want to say thank you to everyone on the team who made this happen. To you, Katie, to Marnie, who's in the background, to Danielle, and everyone else who's been involved. Our OCO team makes these things happen, and they are the people who you encounter when you reach out to us by email or otherwise. And so I'm really grateful for your efforts to make this happen today. Thank you again to all of you, and I look forward to connecting with you in lots of different ways soon. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Amy. And thank you, everyone. Have a great day.